everyone. I'm Gary Null, broadcasting and video streaming live from our studios in New York City. Today, we're going to talk about how to slow down and reverse much of our aging process, how to protect ourselves against the flu naturally without a vaccine, and also what does it mean when a family eats together? Does it help our mental health and especially children? Then we're going to shift into looking at our environment. I have just completed a very comprehensive research, 10 years, along with our senior scholar and resident fellow, Richard Gale. We have reviewed more than 3,000 articles in the scientific literature, read more than 100 books, interviewed dozens and dozens of climatologists and scientists on environmental issues. And I've put together a white paper. I'll be sharing pieces of it today because all the different scientists who say if you look at all the problems, you bring each of these pieces into one mindset, you realize it's the Arctic that's the biggest problem. Well, there are people who are looking at the Arctic, but they're not looking at the other feedback loops. We will. And I came across an article today about a city in Alaska that is warming so fast that for the last year and a half, scientists thought it was a fluke and didn't record anything about it. We will, and show you why it's important. Also today, 8 examples to show how Big Pharma cares more about its profits than it does your health. And today, the latest research on vaccine failures, and specifically from a Dr. Gary Coles, a board-certified physician, and what he is doing, but very few people are paying attention. They should. Also today, I'm going to, since our phone system is being upgraded and expanded so we can take more calls, but we can't take them today, people have been emailing. And I'll go to the emails and read some of your emails. And you can email me at prnstudio@gmail.com. prnstudio@gmail.com. I have a lot of those, and I'll share that with you. And then some commentaries. One of the commentaries I'm going to do today is about who controls the media. I'm not going to do it in a vague or general way. I want to be very specific, to give you names of corporations that own lots of other companies and why their political and economic bias prevent the information from getting you that can make a difference and we should get. Then we're going to also hear from a former top executive at Facebook. I watched this and I was really interested in what he had to say. It's a long talk. It's about 52 minutes. I've only taken one intact 5-minute piece, but it tells you in that 5 minutes what you should know and why you should be very concerned. I'm going to play that. And then people really appreciated the short clip, 5 minutes we did yesterday with Chris Hedges. I'm going to play you another clip today that's 6 minutes from Chris Hedges on the culture of consumption. And then we'll have a discussion about it, and you can call in after that and share your thoughts and your insights. Our talkback number, write it down please, 888-874-4888, 888-874-4888. And then I didn't get to it yesterday. Today I will. It's about a pro cell phone advocate at a private conference at Stanford University talking about what's wrong with it. Now, rarely do you hear this. This is the kind of information that should be front-page news because everyone uses a cell phone, including toddlers. And they have graphs showing you the dangers of this. So we're going to play this for you. And for those of you who want to watch this show, you can watch it later when we post it in the afternoon on Facebook. And by the way, we have about somewhere between, I think, 15 to 17 different streaming services. And I'm getting figures in on see at the end of the year how many total people from different services are listening. For example, in the entire world, where you have thousands upon thousands of radio shows, we've been number one for a long time of people listening over a telephone. More than Sean Hannity and Alex Jones and Laura Ingraham and Tom Hartman. In fact, we have almost as many people listening over the phone as they have, combining many of those together. And also downloading and on YouTube. 6 million unique YouTubes of the documentaries we did on YouTube. And just one server was 1.6 million. So we have a lot of people listening, sharing the information, and I appreciate that. Because I have refused to do any media since the year 2000. Before that, in the earlier part of my career, I was doing media constantly, all the time. Every week I was doing media. And then in 2000 I said, there's got to be a better way. If what we are doing is important to people, they'll share it with other people. If it's not, they won't. And so with no advertising, no articles, no stories, no public relations at all, today we're the number one progressive radio station and program in the world. And articles, you can't imagine the number of people reading the articles. And we've got a whole bunch of new articles coming in the next 4 weeks. We try to do an article a month, and we post it. But boy, are people sharing it. And the documentaries, wow. So thank you. And it shows that you, the progressive minds, people want the truth, who are not bound by an ideology. You're the future. And you're what's going to help save our society and hopefully our planet. Let's begin. Eating together, according to this University of Montreal study, as a family, helps children feel better, both physically and mentally, and it is sustained. Now think back. Think if you're like me, a baby boomer, and you were growing up in the 1950s and 60s, what was the importance of that family meal? Generally 5 to 6 o'clock it would be there. What did you talk about? What was it? What was its significance? In my family, and I'm sure many of yours, we talked about the issues that were important to us, what we did that day, what we were doing, if we were in sports, how that was going. But it was a time that we came together. There were no taking phone calls. You sat at the table till everyone was finished. You couldn't rush and get out. And you began to appreciate everyone's input. That's gone today for most people, even couples. Even when people are eating at the same table, they're frequently either on their cell phones or texting. In fact, recently, someone invited me out to go over an important new book, and they took 22 calls during a 2-hour period, including our meeting, and then part of it was a dinner meeting. And at no time did this person say, I'm just going to turn this off. So at the end of this, the person said, what do I think? And I said, well, I think the idea is good, but I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to work with you. What do you mean you're not going to work with me? I said, I gave you 2 hours of my time, and I gave you ideas for a new book. But you disrupted the conversation every few minutes by taking calls. And I said, I would consider that rude. I didn't bring a cell phone. If I'm giving you my time and energy, it's also out of respect for the fact that you're deciding to share your expertise or your capacity as an agent to open a door. But what that tells me is that you're distracted. If I were to ask you to go over specifically the suggestions I had of why this would be one of the longest books ever published, ever, and I published two of the longest books ever published, a 1,600-page book on women's health called For Women Only, and a 1,300-page book on Get Healthy Now, and this exceeds those. But why it's time, and why I've held off publishing this for about 10 years, because you have to have the right idea at the right time with the right people interested in it. And if you're ahead of everyone, you publish it, no one reads it, and it's worthless. It doesn't serve its purpose, but it's now the right time. But if I ask you, what exactly was the reason I said people will want this book now? What role would it play in their lives? Well, I'm going to read them. No, you see, you were distracted. You were talking on the phone with your daughter about something, about what she was going to wear tonight. That's not significant to this meeting. Now, if someone died and you didn't have your cell phone, would they still be dead after the meeting when you found out about it? So there is no reason that anyone should be on a phone. And yet we live on these phones. And it's considered the way we socialize. So imagine having a business meeting without a cell phone or interruptions. Imagine having dinner without interruptions. Imagine going to a museum and just being there to enjoy the art. Imagine going for a walk in the park where you're enjoying nature. And to put a highlight on this, at a recent October health, it was a retreat for our sister station where I've been on for 41 years. And our very first day, you begin to see which people came who are going to be mindful being here and which people are going to be hyper being here. They're out of the city, but they brought their problems with them. And we went for a walk, a nature walk. And during the walk, I asked people to stop, and I said, now, how many birds have you heard in the last 5 minutes? Birds? I didn't hear any birds. Did you hear any birds? Nobody heard any birds. Okay, close your eyes and just relax and take a deep breath and listen. For 60 seconds, they listened. And then I said, open your eyes. How many birds did you hear? Oh, 11, 12? That's correct. And they were there before. The difference was you were talking. Now, when we eat at retreats, there's an absolute non-negotiable rule. We eat in silence. Because if you eat and talk, as socially enjoyable as that may be, you don't remember the conversation and you don't remember the food. But if you have a conversation that is not distracted by anything, you remember the conversation. It can have meaning. If you have a meal with no distractions and it's slow eating, then you remember it. Now imagine watching a really good film. Now imagine watching one right behind it. Now imagine having a streaming of 5 different great films all at the same time, and you're trying to scan from one to the other, picking up images. You'll remember nothing of all 5. And if you have one after the other, you will forget all of it because we're on overload. As a society, we overload ourselves with stimulus, information, ads, propaganda. It's overstimulation. And to make sure that we get the message of what we're supposed to buy, how we're supposed to vote, what we're supposed to believe, the truth and facts no longer are relevant. It's how conditioned and susceptible have we been to allowing someone else's propaganda into our lives. As a result, then we end up remembering what we had the most messages. And that's why the same ads over and over and over again, the same jingles. So remember them. Otherwise, about 98% of everything that we're stimulated by in a day, we forget. It's no longer relevant. There's no context to it. So having a meal, a quiet meal with your family or your loved one, and just a silent meal, just appreciating each other's enjoying the meal. The presence, sharing that energy, harmonizing the energy of the moment. Going for a walk, just holding hands, harmonizing the moment, just being present. One of the things my mom used to do is we had a swing on the porch, and especially in the summertime, just sitting there as a kid, and my mom would have her apron on, and she'd have a bowl, and she'd have, let's say, string beans, and she'd be breaking the ends of the beans and stripping out the little strip. Something that simple. I never forgot it. And she'd look over and she'd smile. And remembering the smile on your mom's face, because there was no distractions to it. Simple things can have profound effects and stay with us if we're not overloading the moment. So the takeaway message is this. Try slowing down to the speed of life. Ground your energy and harmonize it with your surroundings, if those surroundings are what you want to harmonize with. I'm in the city for part of the year, and at night I look out over the city and I harmonize the beauty of the skyline and the wonderment of all that the city has to offer, and going to walking down Broadway to Lincoln Center or going to a concert. You're harmonizing. But when you're in the midst of that crowd going to work, and I frequently walk to work, which is about 4 miles, but I like to go early when it's not busy, you get into rush hour. It's just hyper overstimulation. It's like living in a quantum vapor of methamphetamine. Even if you're not taking it, you're part of the overstimulation, the rush, the hurry, the harriedness. Calm it down, because when I'm not here and I go home to my home in Florida, there's just peace and quiet and nature. And we have lost that ability now, most people, not all, as a society to slow it down, to energize ourselves. You get energized not by hyperkinetic energy, that's static energy, but by the ethereal energy of life, trees, flowers, shrubs, water, and animals. So that's the takeaway message. Separately, lactic acid bacteria, and you can find that in your probiotics, can protect against the influenza A virus. This is from Georgia State University. And it says, quote, lactic acid bacteria, commonly used as probiotics to improve digestive health, can offer protection against different subtypes of influenza A virus, resulting in reduced weight loss after virus infection and lowered amounts of virus replication in the lungs. Now that's just probiotics. That's not even vitamin D or vitamin A or vitamin C or quercetin or black currant seed oil or black cumin seed oil or curcumin or astragalus, echinacea, pau de arco, olive leaf extract, wild oregano oil, colloidal silver, bee propolis, and bee pollen. All of those can help reduce the effect of influenza or a cold, both viral. And just imagine that if you took all those each day in a smoothie in the morning, you've super protected your entire immune system for the entire day. Even if you did something simple. I was just counseling some people this morning in my office, and they thought because they were eating organic sugar in cookies and cakes and crackers that was fine. Well, if you're diabetic, it's not fine. And the fact that it's called organic doesn't give it a special preference when it comes to the composition of the food. As I said to them, a corpse is organic, but it's a dead, rotting corpse. We've got to get beyond the idea of organic. We've got to get to the idea of living. And I said, so if you want something sweet, you don't have to abandon sweet to jeopardize health. You can have stevia. If you have a glass of tea, put 1 drop of vanilla stevia or lemon stevia or cinnamon stevia in the tea. It's wonderful for you. So that's one way to protect yourself from the flu. Healthy eating linked to kids' happiness. This is the University of Gothenburg, which is in Sweden. So healthy eating is associated with better self-esteem, fewer emotional and peer problems, and such as having fewer friends or being picked on or bullied in children regardless of body weight. And this was published in the British Medical Journal of Public Health. And they looked at thousands of children. Well, of course, what can happen if you're a child having a healthy meal? Well, first, you're going to be less likely to suffer from asthma, inner ear infections, runny nose, all that mucus buildup in the eyes and in the mouth and the nose and the throat, the phlegm. You're less likely to have an overweight body, diabetic, heart disease, and arthritis. You're going to have more energy, more stamina, and the good food will create good moods. So if you do 2 things, and this is true for everyone listening, if you start your day with a super powerful, healthy smoothie, where you put 1 scoop of a vegetable-based protein in, and remember this, protein is made up of amino acid. Amino acids are the building blocks of our body. But if you were to look at the amino acid building blocks from brown rice and a piece of meat, they're identical. The only thing that's different is the percentage of a specific amino acid, but they're both complete. So if you're mixing amino acids, meaning if you have, for example, some brown rice and beans, you're getting more complete, high-quality amino acids than if you had a steak. The steak is going to have to be cooked, and that's creating heterocyclic amines, and the rice and the beans, not at all. The steak doesn't have fiber. You're getting about 10 grams of fiber in the rice and beans. The steak is going to have poor digestion and create a lot of pathogens, pathogenic bacteria, bad bacteria in the intestines, because it's rotting literally at 97 degrees for 3 days to get it out of your intestine. The beans, not rotting, they're fermenting, creating probiotics, helping your digestion, helping your body, helping elimination. So if you started off with a smoothie with a plant-based protein, add in some essential fatty acids, like a teaspoon of flaxseed oil and a teaspoon of coconut oil and a teaspoon of black cumin seed oil, and you put a pint of berries in there, whatever berries you like, blackberries, blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, cherries, pomegranate. It's all good, but a pint at a time. And then you could put any of the other ingredients that you like. You could put your lemon juice in there, which can alkalize your joints and help prevent pain in the body. You can put in some vegetable protein or vegetable powder, your chlorophyll. Chlorella and spirulina are your 2 best. Helps grab that heavy metal and takes it out of the body, preventing heavy metal, lead, cadmium, mercury build up in the body and brain. And that's also turning off inflammation in your brain. Throw in some vitamin C. That turns off inflammation in your joints, in your heart, in your lungs, in your eyes, protecting you from macular degeneration, helping your prostate. So it's easy. Now, that good food is creating a good mood. And then do exercise, which also stimulates endorphins, which are your good mood hormones. They're very similar, by the way, to opiates, very similar to heroin. But these are receptors in the brain that when you have exercise for at least a half hour, power walking is probably your best, walk vigorously, walk fast, you're creating about 6 hours of endorphins. And that's that endorphin rush, what we call the runner's high, that all of us who are athletes feel really good after about 10 minutes of running because our body is being flooded with these feel-good hormones. So now you're getting feel-good from your food and feel-good from your exercise. You put those two together, and all day long, you're going to be feeling better. And finally, from Rusk University Medical Center, high-intensity exercise delays Parkinson's progression. That's really good information. And by the way, when we get our new phone system in, which modulates your voice to have the same quality as a microphone. So it's an expensive system. It's thousands of dollars. But it allows you to have a phone conversation, and we're doing it for all the hosts on Progressive Radio Network who don't have Comrexes. A Comrex is a unit that's about 30 inches long, about 10 inches high, and about 20 inches deep, and it's like an entire studio. It gives you the same identical quality, and we match it here in the studio with our state-of-the-art equipment. So now this new phone system will replace even that. So if anyone wants to broadcast from their home and have high-quality voice sound, this will do it. Better than Skype that has kind of a tinny quality. I'm not keen on Skype. Anyhow, this high-level exercise, quote, high-level exercise 3 times a week, I suggest 6, is safe for individuals with early-stage Parkinson's disease and decreases worsening of the disease symptoms. This is in the Journal of the American Medical Association's Neurology. Well, the moment our phone system gets back in, you're going to hear not from one, but 2 people with Parkinson's disease who are making major progress. If I can work with people before they hit the very end stage, if I can work with people with dementia and Alzheimer's before they hit the stage where they don't recognize you, we can bring them back. We can make major improvements, and have done so. And you'll be speaking with a 93-year-old gentleman who is on his way back into life now with advanced Alzheimer's. That'll be shortly. That's the latest on health and healing. We are 28 minutes into our program. I'm Gary Null, broadcasting from our studios in New York City. We're going to take a brief break and come right back. Please stay with us. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Gary Null. I read an article early this morning. I get up at 4 and I start doing all my research for that day. Even though I've done it before I went to bed at night, I'm always finding new material. And this was an article by John Pilger, who we've had on this program. I have a lot of respect for John. He's one of the world's greatest documentarians and journalists. He's an honest journalist. He wrote an article entitled, Why the Documentary Must Not Be Allowed to Die. I'm going to read a little bit of it here. He says that his first documentary was called The Quiet Mutiny. And everybody got angry with him in the Orthodox media when he did this. It says, The Quiet Mutiny had revealed that the U.S. Army in Vietnam was tearing itself apart. There was open rebellion. Drafted men were refusing orders and shooting their officers in the back or fragging them with grenades as they slept. None of this had been news. But what it meant was that the war was lost and the messenger was not appreciated. The Director General of ITA, which, by the way, at that time was a major television system in Great Britain, Sir Robert Fraser summoned Dennis Foreman, the then Director of Programs at Granada TV, and went into a state of apoplexy, spraying expletives He described me as dangerously subversive. What concerned the regulator and the ambassador, that was the American ambassador, Annenberg, was the power of a single documentary film, the power of its facts and witnesses, especially young soldiers speaking the truth and treated sympathetically by the filmmaker. I was a newspaper journalist. I had never made a film before, and I was indebted to Charles Denton, a renegade producer from the BBC, who taught me that facts and evidence told straight to the camera and to the audience could indeed be subversive. This subversion of official lies is the power of the documentary. I have now made 60 films, and I believe there is nothing like this power in any other medium. In the 1960s, a brilliant young filmmaker, Peter Watkins, made The War Game for the BBC. Watkins reconstructed the aftermath of a nuclear attack on London. The War Game was banned. The effect of this film, said the BBC, has been judged to be too horrifying for the medium of broadcasting. The then head of the BBC's Board of Governors, Lord Novenbrook, who had been Secretary of the Cabinet, he wrote to his successor at the BBC, the War Game is not designed as propaganda. It is intended as a purely factual statement and is based on careful research into official material. But the subject is alarming, and the showing of the film on television might have a significant effect on public attitudes towards the policy of nuclear deterrence. In other words, the power of this documentary was such that it might alert people to the true horrors of nuclear war and cause them to question the very existence of nuclear weapons. And then the article goes on. I've posted it. About 7 years ago, I produced The War on Health. There was more search results on Google for that than any other documentary I'm aware of in American history. Hundreds of millions of search results. And at one time, it took up the first 15 entire pages. Every single listing on every page was about this documentary. And yet it never showed in a theater. Today, my films don't show in theaters. That's antiquated. Don't need it, don't want it. Or on Netflix. I had many films on Netflix. I took them off. Today, I believe that documentaries, as John Pilger suggested, are a form of subversion. They are challenging the orthodox official views and are meant to tell the truth and do so in an unflinching way. They have done everything possible to push back, limit exposure, attack Pilger's reputation, my reputation, and I don't pay attention to it. I just go forward, as does he. I've done over 100 films. The latest one, I'm going to have a limited private screening in next Thursday, and unfortunately, there's going to be too few seats for everyone who wants to come. But I personally made it easier because we were getting calls yesterday that the process at the ticket office, where this theater is, was so slow that people were waiting and waiting and waiting. Keep in mind, when I make an announcement, and people call just then, you've got all day to call. So if it's busy, call back. But I'm allowing people today to call my office. We actually went up and bought 100 tickets yesterday just so that we can give them to people when they call our office. Here's what you're going to do. You can call the theater box office. It starts at 7 o'clock next Thursday, and I'll give you the box office number. But you have to be patient, and you should spread your calls out, meaning don't try all at once. 212-864-5400. 212-864-5400. That's next Thursday. The film is called Deadly Deception, and it is, in my opinion, the hardest-hitting film I've ever done and could do the most damage to special interest groups, because unlike other films, I got behind the scenes. I will only say that I managed to locate people in other countries who were eyewitnesses to events. So it's not hearsay what this film's showing you. It's factual first person. It's alarming. Also, I put more energy into making this the most beautiful film. The cinematography is spectacular. It's going to rivet people. It's not a feel-good film. It's not like Plant Codes, which was the most awarded film in the world that I'm aware of, over 50 International Film Festival awards that we've won or been official finalists in. No, this is not a film you're going to feel good watching, nor when you come out. It's going to startle you. It's going to anger you. It's meant to. And then I'll have a worldwide premiere in January with press conferences in Washington, in New York, in Chicago. And I can't tell you any more than that because there's an enormous amount of planning going into this with a whole lot of people who are going to be involved. But this is one of those paradigm-changing events. So if you want to join me next Thursday for a small private screening, you'll call that number or 646-926-5422, my office number, 646-926-5422. And you'll get a copy of the film when you attend the film as well. And the webinar and other things are coming up shortly in January. You can also get tickets by going to prn.fm, PRN, Progressive Radio Network.fm, prn.fm. So that's that. So I remember once, this is just one of the little anecdotal stories. I was officially selected for AIDS Inc. for the Sarasota International Film Festival, and that's the year that I think Al Pacino had Richard III as a documentary, and I think Bowling for Columbine was in that year, Michael Moore's. And so it got accepted. And I went up on a Saturday, and I wanted to see some of the documentaries. I love seeing other people's work. I love being at a film festival because you meet all these wonderful documentarians, and you share stories. You talk with each other. And I have such respect for their work, and I know what it takes to make a documentary, especially if you're not asking for crowdfunding, which I don't, and you're not asking for sponsorships, which I never have, because I don't want anyone saying, well, I put up money, so you don't want to go after that. You don't want to expose that. No. At least I have creative control. So whatever I know the truth to be, it's getting in the film. So after talking with about 10 documentarians and seeing a couple films that afternoon, I went home to Southern Florida. So a buddy of mine called and said, "Are you coming to the award ceremony?" I said, "What for?" I mean, look at the competition. No way that we're going to do any good there. I'm just happy to be accepted. It's very hard to get accepted in the film festivals. I mean, 10,000 documentaries made. They might select 30. What's your chances? So anyhow, I get a call. It's 7 o'clock night. I said, "Gary, you just won not just Best Documentary, Best Director, but Best of Festival," meaning of all the feature films, some 200 feature films, yours was the best of all. So I got in my car and went zipping up to Sarasota. And I got there late, and the ceremony was over, and everyone was kind of hanging around. And they never let you know who the judges are. And I said, "Is there any judge here?" And they said, "That guy over there." So I went over, and I said, "I have a question for you. I didn't have all the special effects, and why did you vote this best film?" He looked at me. He said, "I happen to know a lot about what's going on in the war on AIDS, and someone very close to me was put on a heavy program of AZT and died because of the drug. And no one's had the courage to tell the truth about the war on AIDS. And this did. And the truth was more important than B-roll or anything else that you could put in a film. And it resonated with the judges, not just one, but several." I thought, okay, and I thanked him. No media in America would touch the film, or the story, or a press conference, or over 40 articles, or 5 other documentaries. No one would touch the story, and to this day has not. It is a story that people in the field are so invested with 800 billion, with a B, $1 billion they've made off AIDS, that the truth, the full truth, yeah, AIDS exists. Yes. I and my doctors have treated 1,200 full-blown patients with AIDS, not just HIV positive, but otherwise healthy. We're talking about near death, and reversed their diseases, and not a single person with AIDS died during the years that I had the Tri-State Healing Center, was treating them for free. But that truth, the media did not want to know. But if you had a drug, that they were all over. If you were one of the groups that was getting money, well, then anyone who wouldn't agree to you is an AIDS denialist. Corruption in every field is still rampant, and there's still truths that need to be told. And that's why I'm encouraging more documentarians to find what you're passionate about. Find a truth that has not been told, that has been rejected, and put your energy behind it, because it is the documentaries on the internet that will lead the way to movements in the future that have not been possible in the past. Because in the past, if they could discredit you, and it's easy to, they can lie, they can set you up, they can do anything they want in today's world, then you're forgotten, you're dismissed. But a documentary lives beyond you. And if people are moved by it, then you've given people a truth they did not have, whatever that theme or story that you want to tell. Someone I know has wanted to do a documentary on addiction, and everything we've been told. I see this ad says, addiction is a disease. No, addiction is not a disease. Addiction has never been a disease. But you make your money if you call it a disease, because then you've medicalized it, you've pathologized it, and you're not going to help a damn person. I was head of addiction at Trafalgar Hospital for a long time. Thousands of people I work with, but never once did I use medicines, including methadone. And I got people clean, and they stayed clean. In fact, I just had a conversation last night with a close friend of mine whose son came to a retreat, absolutely zonked on drugs and alcohol. And today he is a vibrantly healthy, highly creative, extremely intelligent, focused and calm mind with a energy to create and do things unique. Why is it that in the 10 to 12 years that the psychiatrists working with him had him all these meds institutionalized, why not once could they get a positive result? Because they had the wrong protocols. And they honor their protocols because they're profiting from it. When are we going to learn? When are we going to stop supporting people for following wrong protocols, wrong ideals, wrong dogmas, wrong ideologies? They're rewarded for the effort and their compliance and their loyalty to failed systems of belief. That's medicine, with the exception of emergency medicine. That's all of medicine in America, and our body politic, and so many other things. Look for the truth. You will not find it within the orthodox thought process at all. Oh, by the way, from your emails, I've got some I want to read here and share some insights. This came to me from Mildred Milton. Mildred lives in San Diego. She said, I would like this message to reach Gary Null. On my 90th birthday, September 22nd, 2015, I sent you a note and a picture. Since that time, you have personally called to see how I'm doing and to give me some helpful information. My husband and I moved from Indio to San Diego last September, and I have lost touch with you due to address and phone number changes. I just celebrated my 92nd birthday and feel fine, thanks to you. We love being close to the ocean in La Jolla. Thank you for all that you have done for me and hope to receive a call from you again. Well, I called her today, and Mildred is doing great. Her and her husband go out walking, power walking every day. I've given her an upgraded protocol. She is taking her smoothies and eating a healthy diet. And most importantly, they're spending all their quality time together doing things that show them the joy of living, of honoring their life. And that's as important as any vitamin you can take. So I'll touch base with Mildred, as I do a lot of people. I like to see that they're doing well and staying healthy. This comes from John from South Amboy, New Jersey. And it says, high school English classes focusing on banned books. Also, I like the Japanese model of having children participate in janitorial cleaning up their schools. Additionally, they're focusing on considerate behavior and manners, not jumping into academics during the initial years. Then learning practical skills and trades and changing curriculums to match individual skills to sustain student graduates in the real world, a world that packs up and leaves you as if not profitable for them to stick around your community. Very good, John. This was about schooling and what's wrong with our schooling. And he's suggesting here that the Japanese model, if you're not familiar with the Japanese model, a few things. First, the Japanese don't have the same kind of janitorial services or cooking services in their schools we do. The students go in each day and they sweep and mop and clean and dust and disinfect all the tables and chairs, the hallways, the stairways, the bathrooms. The students do that, and they do it meticulously. Then the students go into the kitchen and make all the meals, and they make healthy meals, far healthier than any meals, with possible exception of Montessori meals, that we eat in the United States as children. And they have a background in nutrition. They're taught nutrition. Now, of course, they're coming from, if their parents are older, then that's the healthiest diet that there's been in the longest-lived population in the world because of that diet. And so they understand about fermented foods and seaweed and starchy vegetables and seafoods and how to make them. So they're making brown rice. And so if you see a Japanese school food, it's healthy, and the school's clean, and they allow them to understand, as important as the material you're learning, learn manners, learn decorum, learn to be polite, subjugate the excessive ego needs to that of humility, because we learn when we're humble. We do not learn when we're arrogant. When we're arrogant, we posture our ego to defend what we know as if it is sacred, immutable, and incontrovertible, where humility allows us to have uncertainties. And with uncertainties, we question. With questioning, we're open to other ideas and other realities and other truths beyond our own. That's important. So if you think somehow the Japanese or the South Koreans or the Chinese have some genetic preferential gene, they don't. But they do have what we once had, manners and consideration and humility. And boy, does that give them an advantage in what they learn, how they learn, and using it in a context where our overstimulated teach to the test with no consideration of context, disallows, purges the capacity for critical thought. So thank you, John P. And another one here. This comes from Linda. And it says, Dear Gary, a friend of mine sent this article. What do you think? I've heard you say you don't eat wheat or bread, period, but there are so many good whole grain ones on sale at the green market and in health food stores that I'm not sure why you don't eat bread. It may be this article is comparing white bread with whole wheat bread bought in regular supermarkets. And if so, I could agree it's not an improvement. Your thoughts? The reason I do not eat bread is because I don't eat processed wheat. I don't eat any processed food where the endosperm, the nutrients, the enzymes and essential oils have been removed, because that's what's important. Yes, the outside fibrous material is important. The ligocellulose is important for healthy digestive quality. But when you're eating a bread, the only bread I would suggest you eat is an Essene bread, Essene. That means that it has all the component parts. It has everything that you need, and it is cooked at a low temperature, generally around 115, 120 degrees. So it's a living food. It's rich in enzymes and probiotics and nutrients and phytonutrients, and it can be made savory with chives and garlic and dill, or it can be made sweet, like with dates and nuts. And it's also, they're flourless bread, so there is no flour. And the gluten comes through the flour. But sprouting, there's no gluten. So if you had a sprout bread that has no gluten, that's healthy. It's the living breads that count. The Asim breads, generally you find them in the frozen food section of the store. And they're great. Cut it, put on some nut butter, and it's terrific. So that answers that. And otherwise, you're just getting a lot of empty calories, no matter what they call it. Now, I want to end our program today with a look at Chris Hedges, this commentary he gave that follows yesterday's about a society that is a culture of consumption.
NAFTA was great if you were a corporation. It was a disaster if you were a worker. And we are now getting a taste of Clinton's draconian welfare reform bill, signed in 1996, as tens of millions of people face the prospect of losing their unemployment benefits and attempting to survive on $143 a month from welfare. It was the Clinton administration, led by Summers, which signed into law the Financial Services Modernization Act of 1999. The act ripped down the firewalls that had been established by the 1933 Glass-Steagall Act, designed to prevent the kind of meltdown we are now experiencing. Glass-Steagall established the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. It set in place banking reforms to stop speculators from hijacking the financial system. With Glass-Steagall demolished and the passage of NAFTA, the Democrats, led by Clinton, tumbled gleefully into bed with corporations and Wall Street speculators. And many of the architects of this deregulation, economists such as Summers, have come back again to service these corporations in the Obama White House. The cost of our empire of illusion is not being paid for by corporate titans. It is being paid for on the streets of our inner cities, in former manufacturing towns, and in depressed rural enclaves. Human beings are not commodities. They are not goods. Their misery is not the regrettable price of globalization and the free market. They grieve and suffer and feel despair. They raise children and struggle to maintain communities. And the growing class divide is not grasped, despite the glibness of many in the media, by complicated sets of statistics, lines on a graph that charts stocks, or the absurd utopian faith in unregulated globalization and complicated trade deals. It is understood in the eyes of a man or woman who is no longer making enough money to live with dignity and hope. The growing desperation across the United States is unleashing not simply a recession. We have been in a recession for some time now, but a depression unlike anything we have seen since the 1930s. It has provided a pool of broken people willing to work for low wages and to do without unions or benefits. For the bottom 90% of Americans, annual income has been on a slow, steady decline for 3 decades. There are 50 million Americans in real poverty and tens of millions of Americans in a category called near poverty. And our elites, meanwhile, manipulate statistics and data to foster illusions of growth and prosperity to mask the damage. They refuse to admit, at least to us, that they have lost control, since to lose control is to concede failure. They contribute instead to the collective denial of reality by insisting that another multi-billion-dollar bailout or government loan will prop up the shattered edifice. The well-paid television pundits and news celebrities, the economists and the banking and financial sector leaders see the world from inside the comfort of the corporate box, and they are loyal to the corporate state. The assault on the American working class, an assault that has devastated members of my own family in the former mill towns in the state of Maine, shows no sign of abatement. In the past 3 years, nearly 1 in 5 U.S. workers was laid off. Among workers laid off from full-time work, roughly 1/4 were earning less than $40,000 a year. And there are whole sections of the United States that now resemble the developing world. There's been a Weimarization of the American working class, and the assault on the middle class is underway. Anything that can be put on software, from finance to architecture to engineering, can and is being outsourced to workers in countries such as India or China, who accept pay a fraction of that of their Western counterparts and work without benefits. And both the Republican and Democratic parties, beholden to corporations for money and power, are responsible.
I'm Gary Null. Thank you all for listening. I look forward to sharing more tomorrow. Have a nice day.